In The Recruit, we get introduced to Owen Hendricks. He's 2 days into his job at the CIA. He's formerly a lawyer, but when he got the opportunity to join the CIA and just do cool stuff, he jumped at it. He's excited, but he's also very fidgety when he gets called into his boss's office for the first time. His boss, Walter, has no idea who he really is. He even gets his name wrong the first time, but he doesn't care. His first course of action is to send Owen to the Senate, because the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee is planning on reading a classified document at a public hearing. Owen's got to stop him, and it's not a suggestion. If Owen is incapable of stopping him, he's not going to have a job there. But when Owen tells him that he can't read the document, this senator, a guy named Senator Smoot, doesn't take it well. He starts killing the messenger, telling Owen that he's a dead man walking, it's his constitutional right to read that document. He's going to exercise that constitutional right, and he's even going to subpoena Owen for it. But right before he goes back into the hearing and proclaims that he is going to quote the document, Owen pitches him on the idea of leaking classified information. This will result in criminal action, but it'll also result in a nasty campaign video when he's up for re-election. At the end of this pitch, the senator decides not to read the document, keeping Owen employed at the CIA. When Owen returns to his office, he's surprised because there are two people sitting in it. Their names are Lester and Violet. They're his coworkers, and they're very, very intrusive as to what he was doing on Capitol Hill. But there is a reason why they were sitting there. They drop a bunch of files off on his desk. They tell him that they call them the crazies. It's basically anybody who mails the CIA and tries to blackmail them for anything. Because most of it is just a waste of time, they call them the gray mails, not blackmail. Because every once in a while, there actually is some credibility in there. Somebody that actually does know something about the CIA, so they have to go and talk to this person, figure out what they know and what they want. It's now Owen's job as the low man on the totem pole to sift through all of that junk and try to find out if any of it is credible. None of this is what Owen thought it would be when he joined the CIA. Because of this, it's going to be a really long night for Owen. He decides to go grab some coffee, and he runs into another coworker. This one's a lawyer just like him, and his name is Janis Ferber. What a name, what a guy. He is wired. That's because he's a lawyer for a special operations group that is terrorizing his life. They want to greenlight a mission, and he wants to stop them, and because of that, he hasn't left the office in 3 days. He's on edge. His advice to Owen is get out before the ink dries on your paperwork. He's not the friendliest guy, but he's also the only guy in the building when Owen runs into what he thinks is a credible gray mail. It's from a woman named Max Melodze. She's in prison in Phoenix, and she's claiming that if they don't get her out, she's going to spill agency secrets on Shelby Shaw, P.W. Butcher, and much more. None of that makes any sense to Owen, but it sounds like it might be real, so he has to go find out if any of this rings a bell with anybody. Owen quickly looks up what Max was arrested for, which was a pretty brutal murder in Phoenix, and then he goes and finds Janis. Janis has to be convinced to help him out. In return for answering questions, Owen's going to give Janis some of his roommates Adderall, but he does get the answers ultimately. P.W. Butcher is a cryptonym. It's an agency code name for a clandestine operation. The first two letters, P.W., are the country code where the operation's taking place, and Butcher is the actual code name. He also tells Owen that there's no way an asset should know any agency cryptonym. Because of that, Owen thinks that this might be the real deal. And even though Janis tells him to scrap it, he goes down the rabbit hole anyway. Janis points him in the direction of somebody who can answer who P.W. Butcher is, means, any of that. And this guy tells Owen that P.W. is the country code for Belarus. And Butcher is the code name for an operation in Belarus back in 2009. And as for Shelby Shaw, that's a pseudonym for a DO officer. That DO officer just happened to operate in Belarus at that time. This leads even more credibility to this gray mail. Eventually, the guy that's helping Owen out asks, what is this about? And when Owen fills him in on the gray mail issue, the guy gets really spooked, saying there's no way anyone outside of the agency should know a classified agency cryptonym and an officer pseudonym. What it means is Melodze could be a hip pocket asset. There wouldn't be a file on her, and there'd be no way to ID her case officer. But the fact that there is no file on Melodze, and all the information that she already knows, it leads Owen to his boss, Walter Nyland's desk. Owen fills his boss on everything he knows so far, and that includes the actual name of Shelby Shaw. Selby Shaw's real name is Dawn Gilbane. She's currently at an agency black site in Yemen. Nyland tells Owen to keep going with this investigation, and then he calls Lester and Violet in and informs them that they'll pick up on the slack of Owen's workload. And that doesn't really sit well with Owen's new coworkers. They don't really like that. They think Owen just made them look bad. And Owen reminds them that they made themselves look bad by giving him their workload in the first place. Owen then fills Lester and Violet in on what's going on. But the question he has is, how exactly is he going to get to Yemen? He feels like he has to go to Yemen because that's where he's going to get the answers he needs. So when he asks Violet and Lester how he gets to Yemen, their response is, well, you travel coach, you rent an economy car, and you keep the receipts. It's a little bit surprising that this is the way the CIA operates, but after all, it's Owen's third day on the job. He doesn't know any better. He heads home to Pack, where he finds his roommate, Terrence, and his ex-girlfriend Hannah playing flip cup. Even though Hannah's his ex-girlfriend, they have a really good relationship still. She's no longer sleeping in Owen's bed, but she still does live in the apartment. He starts packing, they ask what he's doing, and he loves the fact that he gets to tell them it's classified. As he's packing, Hannah tells him that his mom called her. Owen never told his mom that they aren't dating. And that's when Owen says, well, I haven't talked to her in 6 months. Not only does she not know we're not dating anymore, but she also doesn't know I work for the CIA. He then quickly changes the topic because he does not want to talk about the relationship with him and his mom. The next day, Owen hops on a plane, gets to Yemen, gets to the black site, but he's not greeted with the warm welcome he thought. In fact, they beat the crap out of him, chaining him up and interrogating him. He thinks he gets a break when he sees a woman come in because he knows that she must be Dawn, but she doesn't give him a break. They don't buy his story at all. The fact that a CIA operative just happened to show up at a black site with no previous warning whatsoever, it's fishy. Dawn especially doesn't believe the fact that he just wants to talk about an old op. He flew all the way to Yemen just for that. But the thing that really makes Dawn feel like Owen's full of it is his passport. It's blue. It's not black. She tells him that if he really worked for the CIA, they would have offered him a black passport, which gives diplomatic immunity. Dawn is convinced that Owen is there to investigate them, which makes him a hostile. Without the diplomatic passport, the Yemeni secret police are just going to arrest him for spying and then shoot him in the head. With a black passport, he would have just gotten deported. It's at this moment that he realizes that Lester and Violet really put him in a bad spot with this, not giving him any prior information on what he should expect. Dawn has her goons sit Owen down, and then she starts really interrogating him, pulling out pliers and threatening to pull off his fingernails if he doesn't give her the answer she wants. She's not very nice about it. She doesn't even give him an opportunity to explain himself. She rips a fingernail off, and that's when Owen starts screaming about the gray mail. He tells her that it's his first week on the job. He got recruited in law school. He's got a pathological need for stimulation. It's probably because his dad got blown up in Afghanistan. His mom never got over it. He's just been running away from it his entire life. So when this opportunity showed up, he said, yeah, okay. Might even make my dad proud. It's at this moment when she finally starts to believe him. He fills her in on P.W. Butcher and Max, and she remembers a little bit of that mission, but not a ton. It was back in 2009. Dawn tells him that she never met Meladze, but she does remember her. What she really remembers was she was a pretty valuable asset. She was an upper-level player of the Belarus chapter of the Russian Mafia. Alex had serious connections inside Russian intelligence. As for her handler, Dawn doesn't remember, but she does confirm that Alex was a big deal. And the fact that somebody would hip pocket a girl like that should scare the crap out of anybody. They then patch up their initial meeting, the whole fingernail debacle. She gives him some advice on how to handle working at the CIA, and then he's back to America, banged up and battered. As soon as he touches back down in the States and finally gets in his own bed, he gets a call from Nyland asking, "Where the hell are you?" He rushes into the office, and before he meets with Walter, he sees both Lester and Violet and tells them that if either one of them try to torpedo him again, they're going to have a problem. He then heads up and meets with Nyland, and Nyland yells at him for going to Yemen. He never told him to go to Yemen. He just told him to continue on with the case. Owen defends his actions by saying he felt like it was the necessary next step, and also that Nyland seemed like the kind of guy who would like that initiative. His intuition was right. Nyland does like that kind of initiative. He then gives him the okay to go to Phoenix and talk to Meladze. And before he meets with Max, he asks one of the officers about her. She's being held without bail, but that's because of the nature of the crime. She murdered a trucking guy named Salvatore Quitney. Phoenix PD thinks Meladze was using his trucks to run product. A short while later, he gets his one-on-one with Max Malatze. She can tell that he is fresh at his job, and she uses this to her advantage. She's able to get details out of him that he wasn't expecting to give her. For example, he doesn't reveal Dawn's name or her pseudonym, but he does reveal that he met with a female in Yemen. She's also able to discern from his questioning that he doesn't have a hard file on her, he has no idea who she is or what she knows. She tells him that she has classified CIA documents. A whole lot of documents. That's when Owen says, then give me those documents, and if you're telling the truth, then I'll help you. So she gives him the location of the documents, and they're in a storage locker. Instead of getting an escort, though, over to the storage facility, he goes alone because he wasn't willing to wait on the phone for the Phoenix division to pick up. Bad mistake. He's able to get the bag with the documents, but he's got company. 2 guys were staking out the storage facility, and they also want that bag. Owen has no idea who these guys are, and he traps himself in the storage locker with nowhere to go. Even though they have a gun, he plays it cool. Eventually, he says, okay, you guys can come in. But when he lifts up the storage locker door, he hits them with a walker and tries to flee, getting in his car and trying to drive away, but they shoot his tires out, and it leaves Owen running through a storage facility. It doesn't take long, though, before 2 guys catch up with him, and they've got him cornered. He has no choice but to give up the bag. They actually do him a favor, though, by opening it, because Malatze had booby-trapped that bag with acid. Whoever opened it got a whole face full of it. There was also no CIA documents in there, just a whole lot of money. Owen heads right back to the detention center and questions Malatze on it, and she admits to using him as an errand boy. As for the 2 guys that attacked him, they're rival competitors who think that money is theirs. When Owen threatens to take the money to the police, she says, no, you're not going to do that. I have all the leverage here, so you're going to drop it off in a trash can out back, and I'm going to have somebody pick it up. The reality is you have no idea who I am or what I'm capable of. That should scare the crap out of you. What should also scare the crap out of you is I spent the entire afternoon going through your social media. That was thanks to you giving me your real name. Now I know everything you've done since college. Every place you've lived, every woman you've dated, your friends, everything. This kicks off a pissing contest between the 2 of who knows more about the other. But when they finally zip up their flies and get done with the pissing contest, Alex tells them that she knows about dozens of top-secret CIA operations in Belarus and Russia involving incredibly well-connected people. Stuff the agency would do anything to keep a secret. She then instructs Owen to go back to Langley and make sure the number 1 priority is her murder charges dropped. And if anyone thinks it's easier just to kill her, a press release is going to go out detailing the minutia of decades worth of clandestine operations. She starts trying to manipulate Owen to give her an answer right on the spot, but he doesn't do that. He realizes that she needs him as much as he needs her. He starts to walk out, and that puts pressure on Malatze, who finally gives him some information. It's her handler's name. It's a guy named Not Bob. While that name means nothing to him, at least he's not going back to Langley empty-handed. Right before he does leave Phoenix, he stashes that money, but he doesn't put it in a trash can, putting it instead what looks like a power box. On the flight home, he deletes everything on his social media, and then when he gets back to Langley, the first person he seeks out is Janice, asking him about Not Bob. And Janice knows exactly who Not Bob is. In fact, he tells Owen everybody knows who Not Bob is. He's a legendary operative inside the agency. He ran the most dangerous op in history and then retired as a division chief. Owen then tells Janice that he got that name from Malatze, and Janice feels like he's lying, because assets don't know their case officers' real names. And they sure as hell wouldn't know an internal nickname. But as Owen points out, people keep saying she shouldn't know these things, but yet she knows these things. But the fact that she knows who Not Bob is a huge deal. Bigger than Owen could have imagined, because Not Bob isn't just some CIA officer. No. He's the current sitting president. Owen's next stop is to do a debrief with Nyland. He doesn't tell him, though, about the whole Not Bob situation, just saying that after interviewing Alex, he feels that her threat is credible and it seeks further investigation. Owen then leaves Nyland's office, gets back to his own, and he's greeted with a surprise. It's a subpoena, the same one that the senator promised. After that reality hits him in the face, he decides to call Max up and tell her that they have a deal. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or 2.